Well, the official post positions for the Pegasus World Cup races have been announced, so to celebrate, I will be making an analysis video on the Pegasus World Cup Dirt, and yeah, let's get into it, because I have a lot to say. So, number one is True Timber. Now, True Timber is by far the bottom of the barrel when it comes to these kinds of horses. No stakes wins, and has lost to multiple runners in this race. So, honestly, pass, just hard pass, no thanks. Number two is Tax. Now, Tax is a horse that could actually have some potential on the lead, considering that there isn't really many front runners in this race. Like, there's a couple, but most of them prefer stalking, such as Tax. So Tax could potentially be a pace setter, but this isn't a guarantee. One thing that is noticeable about him is that, well, his best races have come at 1 1/8 miles, so the distance might be in his favor. However, he's never won anything better than the Jim Dandy, and the Jim Dandy he would have lost if it weren't for the fact that Tacitus had such a horrible trip. So, I feel like Tax doesn't really have the best chance, but he could do something. I'm not really sure. In post position number 3, we have Diamond Oops. Now, Diamond Oops is a horse that I haven't really known much about until he won the Mr. Prospector Stakes. Now, one thing to note is that he has won all 5 of his career victories on the Gulfstream Park track. So, it's very clear that he loves Gulfstream Park. However, he does have a very major disadvantage. This is the first time he's ever ran at 1 1/8 miles. Every single one of his starts, he's ran at 1 mile or below. So, it's going to be very unclear on whether he'll handle the distance change. As well as that, he is a closer with one exception. That exception being the Shadwell Turf Mile, where he was actually a pace setter and was generally in first or second place throughout most of the race, until in late game, he was outstripped by Bowie's Hero. However, this strategy is a very rare one of his, and he regularly prefers to close. And I think with the distance change, this is definitely going to be a strategy that could be very risky. I doubt that he's going to be able to do much with this late closing strategy. However, if he does front running, then he might have a shot. Either way, though, the distance change is going to be an incredible obstacle for him to overcome, so I'd recommend staying away from him. In post position number 4, we have Seeking the Soul. Seeking the Soul is a horse that, honestly, despite having a very good performance in last year's Pegasus World Cup, he has never done anything like it since, with one exception being the Stephen Foster Handicap. But besides that, he's honestly just been really disappointing. Over the last couple of starts, he's really just kind of proven that his best days are behind him. And honestly, I think after this race, they should retire him, because he's past his peak, and I doubt that he'll do anything good in the Pegasus World Cup this time around. But who knows, maybe there's a shot. He likes the slop, and he likes Gulfstream Park, so maybe he can do something. However, I am definitely going to take a huge grain of salt when I say that. So, yeah, Seeking the Soul is a hard pass for me, in my personal opinion. But in post position number 5, we have Omaha Beach. Now, for me, Omaha Beach has quite an easy job on his hands, because compared to the Breeders' Cup Classic, this race is a significantly weaker race when it comes to talent, because out of the 12 horses in the Pegasus World Cup this year, only 4 are Grade 1 winners, and this is a far cry from the Breeders' Cup Classic of last year, where 10 of 11 of the runners were Grade 1 winners. And I feel like Omaha Beach definitely is going to have it easy. Now that he's finished running in sprint and mile company, he's finally ready to stretch out his legs again and run at, in my opinion, the distance he runs at best, 1 1/8 miles, especially considering how he ran so easily in the Arkansas Derby. As well as that, I feel like if the racetrack happens to be sloppy, that's just going to be another further advantage because of how well he ran in the slop in the Arkansas Derby. Either way, I feel like he has an incredible amount of versatility and is ready to handle anything. The only thing he'll need to really try and work on is that he needs to catch horses and not let them get away, because that's what happened in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He let Spun to Run just get a way too easy lead and just run away with the field, so I feel like he'll need to be closer to the pace if he wants to win. At number 6, we have another major contender for the Pegasus World Cup. We have Higher Power. Now, Higher Power, I feel like, has some potential here, considering just how impressive he's been in his last couple of Grade 1 races. He's done no worse than third, and regularly shows up to be very consistent. He's able to handle stumbling out of the gate and coming from behind, or being a front runner. As well as that, considering just how much stronger of a field the 2019 Breeders' Cup Classic was, Higher Power is going to have it way easier for him, considering that he finished third in that race. So I think that's definitely going to be something that could play into his favor. However, there is one small problem, and that could be that he's a West Coast horse going to run in the East Coast. And while that on its own doesn't sound like a big deal, it can definitely change up how good a horse runs. So that is one thing to definitely consider with Higher Power. But besides that, I wouldn't be too worried, and I think Higher Power has the potential to do something great in this race, and could be one of the major contenders that could defeat Omaha Beach. Definitely my second choice, if I'm being honest. In post position number 7, we have War Story. For me, War Story doesn't really seem like the kind of horse to win a race like this. He seems like the kind of horse that does pretty good in smaller races, and is the horse that you always notice running in the smaller races over the course of the year, and then when you notice him running in the big races, you're like, oh yeah, that's War Story. Don't really care about him. That's kind of what he is, and considering that he's 8, no thanks. In post position number 8, we have Mr. Freeze. For me, Mr. Freeze seems just kind of like your average place bet kind of horse. He's that kind of horse who just can't really win any Grade 1 races, but you can maybe expect them to finish second or third in those said Grade 1 races. Especially considering that he was third in the Grade 1 Clark Handicap last time out, I think that's generally a pretty accurate assumption for Mr. Freeze, but even that is giving him a bit of credit that he doesn't exactly deserve, considering that more often than not, he only really wins a few times, and those times are generally pretty insignificant, like his win in the Grade 3 ACAC Stakes, or when he won the West Virginia Derby. He's just kind of forgettable and a horse that you kind of just overlook because he has some talent, but he's overlooked by the other couple of talented horses in this race, even if they aren't as plentiful as I would have hoped. In post position number 9, we have Spun to Run. For me, Spun to Run is a horse that, depending on the situation, can be incredibly deadly, especially when he has an uncontested lead, like he did in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Not even a really good horse like Omaha Beach can catch him if he has that kind of lead. However, when he faces off against a horse like Maximum Security, he isn't nearly as strong because Maximum Security is able to tire out Spun to Run by meeting Spun to Run at every point, able to keep up with Spun to Run's early speed, and because of that, Spun to Run doesn't have anything left and tires out and finishes second or third. And that's definitely going to be a deciding factor. Is anyone going to challenge Spun to Run? From the looks of it, there aren't any other real, genuine frontrunners like Spun to Run in the race, and that could make Spun to Run very dangerous. However, the 1.125 is not his preferred distance, and he's a miler, so that could give him a bit of a disadvantage, but it's all about if anyone challenges him up front early. That'll determine everything. In post position number 10, we have Mucho Gusto. In my opinion, Mucho Gusto is that kind of horse that if you gave him a perfect trip, he would definitely have a really good chance to win. However, it's that kind of trip that you just simply can't expect, because Mucho Gusto is a horse that has the potential to do good at a 1.125. However, it's as simple as he can tire out really early, really easily. As shown in the Oklahoma Derby and in the Travers Stakes, he'll tire out late game after a good fast pace. So it would take a lot of good situations for him to get the slow pace that he needs. And that's just something you can't really ask for him. So honestly, pass. In post position number 11, we have Tenfold, and Tenfold is a very hard pass, because his only real win in the last year was the Pimlico Special, and besides that, he just could not do anything else notable for the life of me. He's just a really situational horse that sometimes can come from way far back and win. However, it's once in a blue moon, basically, when it comes to Tenfold being able to show off his abilities. And because of that, I honestly just feel like he's just that kind of horse who runs in the big races just to participate and not to win. So just don't go for Tenfold. And finally, at number 12, we have Bodie Express. Bodhi Express is a very likable horse, and a lot of people really enjoy the horse simply because of his personality. However, as an actual contender, he's far from the best. Like Diamond Oops, he has the potential to run decently at Gulfstream Park, having all his best performances come at Gulfstream Park. His 2 wins, as well as his second in the Florida Derby at 1.125 miles. However, I just feel like at best, he could be a maybe when it comes to a place bet, and he could potentially be a decent frontrunner. So with him being a frontrunner, Bodhi Express is definitely going to be a lot more threatening to spun to run than he is to actually being a winner. So I'd recommend him for a place bet, but besides that, that's about it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this analysis video. Comment down who you think is going to win in the comment section below. For me, my bets would definitely be, for win bets, I would go with Omaha Beach and Spun to Run. And for place bets, Bodhi Express and Higher Power are the way to go, in my opinion. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys next time.